For nearly 6 decades,
Good morning.
Betty Nash has been sharing her vibrant smile with the world,
How are you?
It's so good to see you.
all from 30,000 feet. At 80 years young, it's safe to say that she's seen it all and served them all.
That'll be coffee for you, ma'am.
Few people know more about the pace of change in travel than Betty, who's thought to be the world's oldest active flight attendant.
Hey folks, this is Regina, your favorite regional flight attendant. I got a special bonus episode. We're going to be talking to Daphne. She's about 16 years old. She is aspiring to be a flight attendant. Her dream job would be with who?
I would say American Airlines or Emirates, whichever one I decide. I still haven't decided yet.
Okay, that's what she says. So she had a lot of questions for me because I've been a flight attendant for 24 years as regional, but I do know flight attendants that work in different areas of aviation. You know, they're out there. There's corporate flying, like NetJets or something in that type of outfit. There's also charter flying, regional, of course. Then you have your main lines, international, things like that. So we're going to get to those questions. I'm going to hand the mic to Daphne.
So my first question is regarding the workload. How much time do you have to be in the air? For how long? Where do you have to be for how long? And just the general description of the job, because I'm not really sure of how it really works.
Okay, so that all depends on the airline you work for. Like I just said, whether it's regional or you do corporate flying. You may work for a mainline like American, which they'll have domestic flying, obviously here in the United States of America. But you're going to...
It's the largest airline in the world.
You ask Google, you ask Alexa that's what they're going to tell you. So, they also fly international, of course. I believe American even flies as far as South Africa. So, of course, they fly to Asia. So, that's going to be a different dynamic as an American Airlines flight attendant if you do international primarily versus American Airlines flight attendant. They may fly domestically only or just to the Caribbean. Does that make sense? All right, and that also depends on whether you're a union member and your contract with the company, and also those rules will be accompanied by federal aviation regulations, which is overseen by the government, of course. So, for me as a regional, like a typical workday, okay, so at my regional, a typical workday, they cannot schedule us for more than 12 hours. Not certainly flying itself, more so the duty hours. There may be 8 hours of flying, but total 12 hours of duty because you have breaks in between. Does that make sense? Okay. And then, they can't schedule you more than 12, but you can work up to 14 if it's a day with delays and all that kind of stuff. But past 14, you're done. You'll hear things on the news oh, they had to cancel the flight or we had to go back to the gate because the crew timed out. And that's what they're talking about. So, the crew may have started at 8 a.m., right? It's now 8 p.m. You take a delay. So that's 12 hours right there. It's now 8 p.m. You take a delay and it's up to 10 p.m. at this point. If y'all not off the ground before then, it's done. The crew is we timed out. We're going back to the hotel to rest. Your flight's canceled. Or they find another crew or whatever. But that's what they're talking about. So you can only work so much in a day because flying can be hard on the body too. Like I did a week and a half ago. The flying itself in the air totaled 8 hours, 8.5. So I will be writing a fatigue report. There's things like that too. We'll talk about that later. But I will be writing a fatigue report because somebody got a little crazy in the scheduling and did not think this through. That's tiring. They should not be doing that. So you have those type of rights, those type of things that you can do within your company to make your work life better. And then if you have a union, Most do. You can come back in a contract, but like, hey, you really shouldn't be scheduling the lines like this or the days like this because it makes us tired and fatigued, and that's bad on you because you end up getting sick. Blah 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 blah. So, did that answer your question?
Yes.
I mean, I'm going into more details too. That's just the hours itself and limitations. Like I told you last night, it is your job. Your job is safety first, not waitressing. So you are monitoring the cabin, watching what people do. And I've got some stories. So, but on with your next question.
So after you like apply for the job and you make the job and you have to do training, what would you say the training is like? Like, is it hard? What do you have to learn? What do you have to know? Stuff like that.
Perfect, because you're asking the right flight attendant. Well, folks, as you probably heard, if you listen to my podcast, I got a couple of podcasts called I Used to Be in the Training Department. So I do know this. And I've been through training, of course. So with my airline and other regionals like me, it's about 3 to 4 weeks from the regional standpoint. If you go to a major, and depending on how major it is, whether you're doing charter or whatever, that can be anywhere from 5 to 7 weeks. Now, I do believe that American is 6. But we'll have to double check that. They'll tell you, all the airlines will tell you on their websites when you apply to their jobs how long the training will be. Okay? Now, don't think you're going to go in there and it's just going to be Cokes and Pepsis and hi, how are you, and how to do your makeup and all that crap. That is a very tiny portion of your training. And I mean tiny. They may spend a couple hours on that. Maybe 3. I don't know. But the vast majority of it is going to be evacuation drills, how to evacuate an aircraft in an emergency, CPR, Heimlich maneuver. Certain airlines that fly overseas, fly over water for a certain amount of time, they may actually have to learn how to deliver a baby. That depends. That'll be something like Emirates. Some airlines require a swimming test. You have to be able to swim from whatever the distance is. Not all. I wouldn't even say maybe most, but there are some that'll say that must be able to swim. Blah 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 blah. I want to say Alaskan does that, or they did in the past, because when I applied a long time ago, when I was applying to all these airlines, I did see a few that had that in there, and it was saying a description. So when I got hired, they don't do this anymore. We did get in the pool, and we basically did what like the military does. They take their shirt off, wet it, inflate it, and you learn how to float on that. We don't do that here at my regional anymore, but some airlines probably still will do that. So expect that. You'll be working on like mock-up cabin trainers. Sometimes the planes that you're training on that are cabin trainers, and I'll put that in quotations, they were actual airplanes that flew. Now they may have been pulled off the line because it crashed or whatever. The one we have, that's what happened. But it's still we're able to maintain parts and we can piece together a cabin trainer. So there's going to be a lot of, like I said, don't think it's just makeup and Coke and Sprite and all that kind of stuff. There's going to be a lot of tests. Not just you have to demonstrate physically that you can open the doors and evacuate an aircraft in a mock-up situation, but there's a lot of studying. You got to study the FARs, company policies, things like that. FARs meaning Federal Aviation Regulations and things like that. There'll probably be a test every week, if not twice a week, depending on the airline. Yeah. And it'll be simple. It'll start out simple in the beginning, like just first day of the test might be airport codes. Next time, they wanted you to make sure you can show that you can understand the 24-hour clock, because we're Americans. We don't, U.S. military does, and maybe some other professions operate on the 24-hour clock, but the majority of Americans in this country are on the AM, PM. So, yeah.
So, what would be some advice that you would give to someone who's like preparing to be a flight attendant, like before they even apply?
So, I've been out of the game for a while because, it was like 20-something years ago last time I applied. However, I have worked in the training department of my regional airline within the last 5 years, so I can tell you what you can do to prepare yourself. I've actually in the training department at my company, you actually work with human resources, and you actually interview and hire flight attendants with the human resources department when you're in the training department. So I have that experience. I've looked over resumes. I've actually proposed interview questions to the potential flight attendant hire. So I will tell you this. When you go on an interview, one of the things they're going to look for, they're going to ask you a question about how you prepare for the next day if you have an early morning report. And basically what we want to hear is that you have a backup. You're not going to rely on Mother Nature to wake you up. You're going to set an alarm on your phone, set another backup alarm that you carry, and maybe call the front desk and have them set up alarm. Because in my experience, a lot of times out of the 3, one of those does not go off because you accidentally or something happens. Front desk didn't set it properly, or you thought you set your phone or whatever. So one may not go off. You have a backup. We just want to hear that you're responsible. So that's a nudge right there if you get that type of question. But you can prepare by, I don't know, my company now says on their website that it's not required, but they prefer a college degree. I think it used to say an associate's. So they want to see when you come out of high school, either you went to pursue at least an associate's degree, at least, or I know in Virginia, that Commonwealth that I used to live in, Lynchburg University had like a certificate program for flight attendant. You don't really need that, but to show that you went through that yearly certificate program and you made it all the way through shows them that you'll be able to push through the training process and that you'll be able to should be able to pass your tests and things like that because you completed that certificate. So that's not a bad thing in your favor. Just customer service work. You're going to be working with people. So anything customer service related, I don't care if you do work in a retail store or anything like that. Also, anything like I've been getting my CPR certification since I was 18, probably younger than that, annually. So things like that put on your resume shows that you are safety oriented, things like that. So that's a good way to prepare.
So what would you say that like your routine would be when you get on the plane?
Okay, so I can go through a day in the life of a flight attendant at a regional. So at my regional now, basically we have mostly 4-day trips. There are some 2 days here and there in a transition. It might be a 3-day trip, but most of them, at least 80%, 90% of our trips are 4-day trips. So I have enough seniority. I don't work weekends. Either I'm going to work a Monday through Thursday trip, 4-day, or maybe a Tuesday through Friday. So let's say I got to prepare for Monday. My report times, I like to do afternoons because I'm not a morning person. My report time is 2:30 in the afternoon. So on Sunday, I'm going to go ahead and pack what I need. For my 4-day trip, I may bring 2 uniforms. I'll wear one out the door. And then another one I'll have in my bag. I'll have 6 days of underwear because you never know what can happen on a trip. You may get stuck somewhere because of weather or whatever. Just pack extra underwear and prep my bag that way. 2:30, what I do, I have my stuff ready to go, put my uniform. At my airport, I have to park remotely and then take a shuttle bus to the airport terminals, which can be a pain. All right, my report time is 2:30. I go through KCM. Are you wondering what KCM is? Yes. That is a known crew member. Known crew member came along after 9/11 to like expedite crew members through security because when you get hired too, you have to pass a background check, a criminal background check. Okay, so that is on file. It's on file at our company, and also Homeland Security knows that you've done this. So they allow us to show up at a booth. So where security's at, there's like a second booth for crew members to come through. We just show our ID. We have our known crew member card. They scan it, and they'll be like, all right, you're approved to go through. We don't have to go through security. most of the time, but they do randoms. And that's because there have been some idiots out there in the past. Later in the podcast, I'll talk about one of those idiots. It was a JetBlue flight attendant, but we'll talk later. We had some crew members that they're very rare. They're rare, but there's enough that the Homeland Security will do randoms on you. And those crew members have done some dumb things and snuck some things through going through no crew member. So that's why it's the way it is now. But anyway, so I would go through no crew member. Hopefully I would get approved and wouldn't have to do the random. Go on through the airport, get to my gate. Now, technically, we're supposed to meet our crew members in the crew room or whatever. I don't do that. I always just go straight to my gate that I know my first flight is going out of, because you'll know your schedule ahead of time. I go to the gate. I get on my airplane. Hopefully, my captain and FO are already there. I introduce ourselves. And then I get on. I start doing my, they're called, it's a checklist that we have to go through on the aircraft. So you're checking basically your emergency equipment and making sure it's where it's supposed to be, that you actually have it, and that there's ways for certain things that make sure it's in working order. Like there's like the AD, the green light is supposed to blink every 20 seconds. If not, that means that battery's dead. Okay, that's one example. On the checklist that you have, like I said, you have to make sure those things are actually there. They're compliant, meaning they're showing that they're working, like I said, with the AD. And they haven't been tampered with, things like that. And you'll know, because you'll see a disarray or whatever, and you're like, that's not right. So you check the checklist, make sure things working, your PA, your public announcement system. You need to make sure you hear yourself back through the cabin, because you have to make required announcements, and the passengers have to hear you. Also, that's also called an interphone. You would check with your captain to make sure you guys can hear each other when you talk to each other, because if you have an emergency or some unusual situation, you have to be able to communicate with each other while that flight deck door is locked. So you do your checks. You see if you got any catering to put away. That's a lot of places and a lot of airlines catering's done for you. Like my regional and out of Philly, it is not done for you. But Charlotte, Chicago, and other places, somebody will come on and just do it for you. But, just make sure you have what you need. Then you get in place for boarding. We board 30 minutes prior to the departure time. However, we cut the boarding time off
10 minutes prior to departure time.
On the tickets, it'll say boarding cuts off 15 minutes prior, but it's really 10. They just put that on their tickets. So you get in your position to board. And what you're doing when the passengers come on board, you're not just greeting them saying hello. You're looking at what they're bringing on board. So on my airline, they can bring two like small personal items. Because it's a regional, they can't bring the large roller boards that you would bring on a Airbus or a 737 or something. But we do, you still allowed to keep them as a carry-on. You just can't bring them in our cabin. We just put them in the back for you. And when you get to your destination, we bring them up into jet bridge, you grab it and go into your next gate. And then you'll probably get on a bigger plane and you can take that on. Anyway, you're checking and watching what people are bringing on board, because sometimes people try to be slick. They try to bring those rollerboards on or whatever they're not supposed to bring on, whatever your limitations are. You're also looking for drunks. You're looking for APBs. An APB is it's an able-bodied person that you would use in case of an emergency. Those people would be like your military. If you know someone's like an EMT or they're dressed in their firefighter gear or anything like that. Nurses, anybody like that, in their scrubs, those are good APBs. So you just mentally keep that in mind should shit go down. And it doesn't have to be like anything but the plane. You could have a medical emergency, which I have had. So you just put those in the back of your mind as a flight attendant should you need it. You're going to go on. Everybody's going to be on. You're going to close your overheads, make sure nobody bought anything too big. You'll have to brief your emergency exits before the door closes. And not only are you just briefing them, you're making sure that the people in the emergency exit are who they're supposed to be, meaning that they be 15 years or older. They need to be, able-bodied, things like that, those restrictions. They can't have a lap child with them. They can't be sitting with a baby on their lap in the emergency exit row. That's a no-no. Need to receipt you. Then, finish your required announcements. Give your captain the count. Make sure the count matches what the gate agent has, because that's a security issue. I did have something happen like that a couple of weeks ago in Quebec. I had 32 passengers on board. The computer information went to the captain saying that we had 30. The gate agent's telling me we had 30. I'm like, no, boo-boo, I have 32. That means somebody got past you that shouldn't have gotten past you, or you didn't scan their tickets. So we made an announcement. We go through, and then the two people in the back, we were going to, on flight, 8011. They were on flight 8001. So that's a no-no. That's a security violation. You can't have people on there not supposed to be on there.
Right.
So, yeah, things like that. You get your count. You make sure your count matches. You close your door, and you're out of there. And then you got to do another announcement. It's called the departure announcement. That has to be done before you get in the air. Okay? And that's the safety demo and all that jazz. And the oxygen mask and what did we tell you? Follow directions, yada, yada, yada. That announcement. So you take off. Get in the air. You make another announcement about the seatbelt sign. You're going to do a beverage service and all that jazz. Maybe your ruby gold, double diamond, ruby sapphire people. Hello. That ass kiss stuff. You will perform your beverage service, and like I said, once that's over, and let's say your flight's an hour and a half, you'll just be periodically just watching your cabin and make sure nobody's doing anything foolish. You might, like for example, you might have a married couple in the back going off on each other, fighting. You gotta go ahead and settle that, because it's not their personal jet. It's a public aircraft. They can't be doing stuff like that. Yeah, so you would get through your flight, watch your cabin. You have more announcements to let them know, hey, we're going to land. You need to prepare, bring your seat backs up, put everything away, and stuff like that. Then you prepare for landing. You do your walkthroughs, and you land, and then you deplane your passengers, and then that's your first flight. Let's say you have 2 flights a day. You do the same thing over for your second flight. Then the end of your second flight, you're into your overnight, wherever you're going to overnight for that trip for the first day. Let's say it's Chicago. Your crew, you get off. Before you would get off that plane after that second, or any flight at the end of the day, you're going to look and go through the cabin and make sure people didn't leave anything. And people always leave something. Earbuds, passport, driver's license, the freaking life. I've actually found twice from Richmond for some reason, some imbecile keeps leaving payroll checks in the seat back pocket. Payroll checks in the seat back pocket. So that's crazy. But yeah, I find some interesting stuff. Things that people need, like I said, their passport. So you would check for all that. You also would check to make sure everybody's off the aircraft. You may have to switch to another airplane, and somebody you can't just kind of look over the seat. Somebody may have slumped in and fell asleep. Or there could be the last flight for the night, and you looked over, but you didn't really look, and if somebody slumped in the seat, you locked them up on the airplane. And yeah, things like that have happened. Yeah, that has happened. So, yeah, that has happened. So things like that. And then, you guys get your stuff off, you get ready. You go call the hotel, like, hey, our crew is here. We come in, we'll meet you out front. You get picked up, go to your hotel room. Some people do a check of their room before they go in. Like, just double check, make sure nobody's in there. Or under the bed, whatever. A lot of the hotels will have the underneath the bed space, that'll be barred up. So that's one less worry. You just look and make sure it's there. Yeah. And then, you're in for the night. Get your rest. One thing you got to worry about is bed bugs, but that depends on, the quality of hotel that your airline's putting you in. Should at least be a 3-star hotel. You shouldn't be staying at any Super 8s or no crap like that, because you're going to have some problems. And most of the time, transportation is key, and I'm talking about ground transportation, getting you to and from the airport. So that's a big thing with a lot of airlines. If that hotel cannot supply that or supply it where it gets us there on time, they'll get rid of that hotel. Because we have contracts with these hotels. Oh. Yes.
So what was your experience like as a new hire, as a flight attendant?
In the training class or just period, my first 6 months?
Yeah, your first 6 months.
Oh, it was interesting. It was new. It was exciting. I've been to a lot of cities that I haven't been to before. You're just a fish out of water, but there's excitement there. even on a regional level. So, but I came in around 99, and that's when there were a lot of deregulation from the airlines where more people could fly that couldn't fly before, and those people don't know how to act. Some of them didn't know, a lot of them didn't know how to act, so it was a lot of air rage at the time. So that's interesting. But there's a lot of things that are out of our control, like weather, aircraft maintenance. I mean, well, that's within the control of the airline, but, and then kind of not. All kinds of issues like that. So there's a lot of things that I just have no control over. But you're in the uniform, so people see that as someone to come at. I'm not the one.
Right.
So you get too out of hand, especially now. It's what, 2023? They've made some changes and upped the fines because 2021 was a bad year, at least in the U.S. I don't know what's going on in Europe and Asia and all that as far as like air rage and passenger behavior, but it was bad here in the States. So, yeah, some lady did jail time, the one that beat up the Southwest flight attendant. They gave her 15 months in jail, but that was another charge on top of that. But she was going to still do some jail time, like maybe 6 months for it originally. But because of some other crap, they made it 15. So, yeah, they're not playing anymore. No one's putting up with that stuff. And then you had the guy at United that broke a spoon and stabbed the flight attendant. I don't think he broke skin, but the fact that he tried to is a whole other story. But that was mental illness because he was talking about some crazy stuff in the air. My first experience, yeah, I mean, you're going to be broke that first 6 to 9 months. And then you got to get used to being alone. Because some crews may want to go out and have dinner on the overnight, some don't, and there's some crews you may not want to go out to dinner with on the overnight. You know, it's just getting used to that whole lifestyle. That'll either make you or break you. Either you get used to it or you don't, and you won't last 6 months.
Would you say you enjoy it, or you don't really find it as exciting anymore now that you've been doing it for so long, or is it like the same kind of?
So I would say when there's changes, like I've been through 3 mergers. So when there's changes and we get like new overnights, or I go through a new generation of pilots or whatever, and new people, then during that transition, it becomes exciting. Like we got a new aircraft and got rid of an old one, so that it was exciting. It was a different chapter for me, my company, and us. That's when I was in the training department. So that became exciting again. Or like when there's a merger, uniform changes, stuff like that. Those things will keep it, I guess, whatever the word, exciting or whatever. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think that was my last question. I really don't have much else to ask. This was a really good explanation.
Okay. Well, great. Thank you. We're done. Hey folks, I'm back. It's Regina. Coming to you on another day. I want to explain to you the Jamaican flight attendant for JetBlue with the cocaine case that I mentioned earlier when I was talking to my niece about being a flight attendant. And as you can hear in the background, I'm at an actual airport, and you may hear some airport noise, so don't mind that. Why? Because I'm an actual flight attendant. But anywho, so this story is coming from 4 NBC out of New York. It's titled Ex-Flight Attendant Who Ditched Cocaine-Filled Luggage at LAX Sentenced in Drug Smuggling Case. So this story is about Marcia Gay Reynolds, a former beauty pageant contestant. She sprinted down an up escalator and out of LAX after she was selected for security screening. This is coming to you by City News Service. This was published on April 9th, 2018. Okay, so story goes on. A former JetBlue Airways flight attendant was sentenced Monday for attempting to smuggle nearly 60 pounds of cocaine worth up to
$3 million
in her carry-on luggage, then fleeing when pulled aside for a baggage search at Los Angeles International Airport. And when she was pulled aside, folks, I'm just letting you know, she was going through the KCM. Known crew member. Marcia Gay Reynolds, 33, sprinted down an up escalator and out of LAX, leaving behind her luggage after she was randomly selected for security screening on March 18th, 2016. The following day, she worked a JetBlue flight to New York and surrendered to U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration agents.
Is she crazy? Like, they weren't going to get her? Like,
she's all on video. Oh my God, people are so stupid. But whatever. I guess she was just hoping. The article continues on. Citing her cooperation with prosecutors, a federal judge in Los Angeles has sentenced Reynolds to time she has already served in custody, about 2 years. Reynolds will spend 3 years on supervised release. She could have been sentenced up to 10 years in federal prison. Reynolds, a former beauty pageant contestant in Jamaica and New York University track athlete, Reynolds had been a JetBlue employee for 6 years. Her arrest gained national media attention. The drug discovery was made in Terminal 4 by a Transportation Security Administration security officer who was screening the airline attendants' carry-on bags as part of a random search. As a crew member, Reynolds would ordinarily get to bypass bag screening. As a TSA officer led Reynolds to a location to be searched, she made a cell phone call, speaking with a heavy Jamaican accent, then kicked off her Gucci high heels and ran down the escalator and out of the terminal. Well, that's all she wrote, folks. I am out of here. Gotta fly the rest of the week, and then I'm back to getting my weekends off, as I should, because I'm a
senior mama.
Anyway, enjoy the spring, enjoy the summer, and hopefully I'll be back for season 3. There's one more bonus episode to come. Look out for it in another week. Peace.